Howdy folks, thanks for tuning in. This is actually a video that I filmed a little bit ago, and I was planning on saving it for a rainy day, so to speak, when I didn't have any other content to upload. And unfortunately, that day came sooner than I thought. I've got a couple of other more exciting videos in progress. Actually, if you can see the smart car in the background over that way, that's one that I'm currently just waiting on a part to come back in the mail on. So stay tuned for that one. That one's a pretty interesting story. And I have a couple of other things in the works as well, but I just wasn't able to get any of those done in time to upload this week. So you get to see the Ford Focus yet again, probably getting a little bit old to see this car over and over again. But in this car, we're taking the old Sync 2 infotainment system out of it and upgrading it to a Sync 3 system, which enables Android Auto, Apple Carplay, and just has a little bit better UI and snappier software. So anyway, this is a pretty quick video, but if it's something that you're interested in, stay tuned, and we'll have some more stuff coming hopefully next week and the following weeks afterwards. It should be pretty interesting. Howdy folks, this is going to be a pretty quick video, but what we've got going on today is we're actually back on the free Ford Focus Electric again, and I'm going to do an infotainment upgrade. So what we've got here is an infotainment unit out of a Ford Escape actually, and this uses the Sync 3 system, which is of course the newer Ford's operating system for their infotainment is called Sync. They've had multiple different versions. The one that the Focus uses is Sync 2 point something, don't remember exactly, but this one is a Sync 3, which enables Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and also just has kind of some better software functionality and all that stuff. So this one actually came out of a Ford Escape, and it's basically just the screen, as well as they call this module on the back the APIM. There's a couple of other things that we need to make this work. It's for the most part plug and play. It plugs right into the car's existing harness. But what we do need is we need a different USB hub for it. The original USB hub in the car is not compatible with the Sync 3 system. You can buy the OE style USB hub that has a little power connection for the LED rings and all that stuff. But really, all that you need is just a USB. So that's all that this is. This is just a little panel mount USB, and then I have an adapter that goes from the USB Type A to the USB Mini that the car's harness actually uses. And then I just 3D printed a little faceplate for it to go in there. It's not the prettiest, but it lives inside of the center console, so it's not really super visible. And then the last thing is just a GPS antenna, because this does have GPS, or at least it should. Fingers crossed on that, but I'm 99% sure that this one does have navigation, which the car did have from the factory as well. Not sure that I care about that a whole lot, given that I can just pair it with Android Auto and use it with my phone, but it is kind of nice to just keep it as a feature since the car did have it originally. But anyway, that's the GPS antenna for it. The old Sync 2 system had the GPS antenna built in, and this one does not, so you just have to have a separate antenna for it. So anyway, that's really all that we need here to get the system to work. And of course, we'll have to reprogram this once we get it into the car to have all the correct settings and stuff. But that's pretty much it. So let's get to it and start getting this thing installed. So removing the old infotainment system is pretty easy. There's a little plastic panel that's supposed to be right underneath of this. For whatever reason, mine's missing. But under that panel, there's just 2 T25 screws that pop right out. All right, now those screws are out. This whole thing should just pop out. Whole assembly with the vents and everything attached. And then there's just a couple of connectors on the back side that have to be undone. There we go. Struggled with that a little bit longer than I needed to. So now we can go ahead and remove the screen, which of course has the APIM attached to the back side of it. There's just 4 more of these T25 screws that hold this in. Okay, so that's all disconnected. Now we should be able to just lift this out of here. And of course we have some more connectors on the back side of this. There we go. So there's those 2 disconnected. These are just, one is for the USB hub, and then the other is just the whole rest of the main harness. So we'll go ahead and set this aside and get the other one set up. Alright, so now we need to swap over our brackets. So this is our old screen from the car that we just pulled out, and this is our replacement, which of course came out of a Ford Escape. So the brackets on them are different. So we need to swap over the brackets from our old screen to the replacement. And these are just they just use a little tiny T8 Torx. Alrighty, there's the brackets swapped over, and now that's ready to be installed. Alright, so now we've got to remove the USB hub from the center console here. So there's actually a screw on the front side near the top, just right in the middle. So I've already removed that. And then we just pop the panel off here. Which is a little bit tricky to get it all the way off, but there we go. We'll unplug the power outlet there. And then this sort of black box on the bottom is the actual USB hub. So we'll go ahead and unplug that. Alright, that's all disconnected. And then I should be able to just push up on it, just like so. And then I can remove it from the console. So it's just got 2 USB ports, an SD card slot, and some audio jacks. So we'll go ahead and put this aside and we'll get our parts for the new one put in there. Alright, so we've got our new USB hub set up here. So I got our little panel mount USB attached to our 3D printed faceplate. And then on the other end, I've got the adapter on here, and I just taped it in place so that it stays secure. So this should just snap right in where the old one came out. I'll feed the wire through there. There we go, that's snapped in there nice and secure. And then this plug down here that plugged into the old setup, that actually is a USB mini. So we're just gonna plug that right in to our harness here. And that part's finished. And we'll just kind of tuck this wiring back in here. Of course, our other connector here is not gonna be used anymore, so That's just kind of a dummy plug at this point. If I were using an OEM USB hub for Sync 3, I would have to have an adapter to go from that to the new one. There are adapter harnesses available for that. But those things are surprisingly pricey, and this will work just fine. So we're going to go ahead and use that. Now we can get our panel back in place. So I'll make sure to plug in the cigarette lighter power outlet. We'll go ahead and get this thing slotted back into position. There we go. So that's popped back into place. More or less. There we go. So that's popped back into place. Now we can go ahead and start working on getting the new head unit actually installed. All right, so back up here in the front, we can go ahead and work on getting the new head unit installed. So of course we need to get our GPS antenna in place. And the way that this thing works, we want this side to face up. This thing does have a magnet in it, but I can also use a piece of double-sided 3M. And I'm just going to find a place inside the dash where this thing can live, which I think that I might just stick it on top of one of these air ducts in here. So let me get my 3M real quick and we'll get that thing in place. All right, so we've got our GPS antenna here, and we're just going to go ahead and push this thing back here. Make sure I have a clean spot to put it. And I'm just going to kind of attach it on top of the air duct in there. And we've got quite a long wiring harness on it, so I'm just going to coil this up and put a little cable tie on it so that it's not in the way. In fact, I'm actually just going to use the original little twist tie that came with it. So we'll just tuck that back there, someplace where it's not going to be in our way. And now we'll take our new head unit. So that GPS antenna is just going to plug right into the back of this, like so. We've got our USB that we added under the center console. This is where the other end of it pops out. That plugs in. And then the actual vehicle harness also is going to plug into the back side here. All right, so that's all in there. All right, so that thing's in place. We'll go ahead and get it screwed down real quick. All right, that's in. Now we can go ahead and get our faceplate with the sound control and everything back on. Let's get back here. And then we'll just pop this thing right into place. And I'm actually probably just going to leave the screws out of that for now. We'll power everything up, make sure it works, and then we'll go ahead and get this thing programmed. All right, so I have the 12-volt battery reconnected. Let's go ahead and start up the car and see what happens. There we go. So we've got a startup screen there. Okay, we have a navigation fault, and I'm sure there will be a bunch of other things on here that we'll need to change. But that's what we're going to do next, is we'll go ahead and program our setup here. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so we're now connected to the car. We're going to go ahead and go to our configuration and programming tab over here. And we want to go to the APIM module configuration as built format. And we're going to go ahead and hit play on that. We get a little error that pops up here that says changing the configuration is potentially not safe. Yeah. Okay, so now we've got all of this. What I'm going to do before anything else is I'm going to go ahead and save this configuration so that if anything bad happens, we can reload it. So I'm just going to hit pre-install config free focus electric. Guess it should be 3 F's, right? Free Ford Focus electric. So we'll go ahead and click OK on that. And now we want to load an as-built. Well, let's see. So I have one that's downloaded. If I go to downloads, this is an as-built file for a 2018 Ford Focus Electric, which of course would have been one of the versions that had Sync 3 to start with, so that's going to be our best bet. And here we go, so 2018 Ford Focus Electric as built. We'll go ahead and load that. Completed successfully. And I actually have a sheet here that's a printout of another guy's setup that he did this same thing. So I'm going to go through and make sure everything matches here. There's a couple of things that I think I might need to tweak. So I've gone to the other setup here. So this is APIM module configuration, not the as-built version. This is just the regular one. And there's a couple things that we need to change here to make everything work. So there's some things that are, kind of what you might call optional. So there's like some climate control strategy and things like that. But the big thing that we want to change here has to do with the ambient lighting. Ambient lighting. So we want to disable ambient lighting in the APIM because it can't really control it in this car, and it actually has separate controls on the headliner. So we're going to disable that. So other than the ambient lighting thing, like I said, there's some other optional things in here like the climate control strategy. You can make it so that you can change the climate control stuff on the screen itself. And you can change the startup and shutdown screens. That stuff, I'm just going to leave all that alone. We'll just leave it as it is. And let's go ahead and see how all of this works. So we'll go ahead and hit end here. And then I'm going to disconnect from the vehicle. And let's go ahead and play around with our unit and see how it is. So we're here in the car. I do have this message that pops up that says there's a navigation fault. So maybe this unit is not properly set up for navigation. So I don't know, we'll have to see about that. So I'll just hit OK on that. And yeah, it looks like it says it has no GPS signal. So maybe there's something wrong with our antenna. It was, basically just a really cheapo unit. I mean, other than that, it looks like everything is functional and it's pretty close to the right location. I don't know, maybe it's not happy about being parked inside under a metal roof. But other than that, everything here looks pretty nice. So we can go to our audio screen, go through, all of our radio stations. We can connect a phone. Looks like somebody else's old phone is connected to this unit. We can actually connect to Wi-Fi. So that's pretty cool. Of course, we have our navigation, our apps, connect device, find mobile apps, all of that stuff, Bluetooth, all those good things. Let me grab a cable real quick, and well, I'm actually filming with my phone, so I can't really connect to it for Android Auto. But let me see if I have another device that I can maybe connect via Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. All right, so I've got my old phone here. Let's go ahead and plug it in and see if Android Auto works here. And there we go. So we've got Android Auto on the screen. I'll hit agree. And there we go. Just takes a second there. But now we've got Android Auto. And presumably Apple CarPlay as well, but I use all Android devices, so the Android Auto is the only thing that's really applicable to me. But yeah, how about all that stuff? So we can pull up our mapping and stuff on here. I can use Spotify, all that good stuff. So very cool. So let's see if I go ahead and go back. Yeah, so on the screen there, it allows me to go back to the regular sync, and then I can control all the regular things on here. And of course, since we did the configuration on the car, we still have all the original settings that we could change, like all the charging settings. We've got our vehicle settings for, charge port light and all that stuff. All right, so now I've pulled outside and it actually did go back to the correct location on the map. So must have been just because we were parked inside, but now if we wanted to, we could navigate to wherever we wanted to. So, say if we hit navigation here and we want to go, I don't know, let's find something to eat. It'll search and then it'll find, stuff nearby. So if I wanted to pick one of these, just hit start. No, I will not charge the battery. And then, of course, it'll do the navigation and route us there. Of course, if we're plugged in with the phone, we can do it via Google Maps instead. But we still have the capability of doing the in-car factory navigation, which the car did have originally. So anyway, that's all good stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this video. I think that this was a pretty worthwhile upgrade. These navigation units with the Sync 3 system, you can source one from all sorts of different models of Ford or Lincoln. They're basically all interchangeable. You just have to program the right configuration into them. Some of them have navigation, some of them don't. Whatever your preferences are on whether or not you care about that. If you have the Android Auto or the Apple CarPlay, it's not really necessary if you're going to plug the phone in, but it is something that's there if you want it. And other than that, yeah, online I would say that these things with the APIM usually sell probably in the $200 to $250, maybe $300 neighborhood. If you search around through, local wrecking yard or something, sometimes you can find them really cheap. But, again, you're sorting through stuff in a wrecking yard, and you might not always find what you're looking for. So there's obviously caveats to that. But yeah, apart from that, the only other things that you need are, of course, the GPS antenna that we put under the dash there, and then the different USB socket for the setup. You kind of can use the original one with Android Auto. Apparently, the original one won't work with Apple CarPlay, and if you do use the original one with the new system, it will give errors for incompatible USB or something like that. So you can just clear the error every time you start the car. But if you just get a cheap USB that just plugs in, that works just fine, just like I did in this case. So anyway, that's going to do it for now. I might play around a little bit with this thing, maybe, you know, change some of the startup sequences or anything like that. But yeah, it's all pretty simple stuff. So anyways, thanks for watching.